Alright, so in our last video, I stopped at the area in which we were beginning to make our aim offsets for this guy. So what I'm going to do first really quickly is I'm going to do a little bit of rearranging here, because one of the things that's really been bugging me is trying to find this guy's animation blueprint that drives him. So if I click on this character in here that we're working on, or even go up here within the details panel, you'll find your mesh, and we can find the animation blueprint that drives this. So even if I were in the game editor, I can come down to animation, click on the magnifying glass to find the animation blueprint that drives him, and I'm going to move this down to the third person blueprint out in the front. So I can just drag that down. Let's go move here. And if we go to the third person blueprint folder that we are working in, we'll now see that our two main graphs that will be working between the blueprint and the character's blueprint, the animation blueprint and the character's blueprint, excuse me, are now in a folder next to each other where we can find where the two most crucial pieces that drive this character are. In terms of doing this on a source control side of things, if you're going to be rearranging your folders, make sure that you are set up and have a system in mind on how you want to arrange your folders, where things are going to be saved. Because when you have to move things around in a group project that's pretty large, you have a chance of actually messing up references and whatnot. Like earlier when I was doing this video, I kind of messed up and I was trying to move this back, and one of the problems I was getting was if I tried to move it, it just tells me I can't move it because references will be broken and many other things like that. So one of the other good practices you want to do is when you move your assets around, be sure, like I always go up to the content folder and I right click and I just say fix up redirectors in folder. What this basically does is it redistributes where your references are for your assets, so it knows where to associate things together for when you bake out a project. Example of this is if we right click on our animation blueprint, we can come down to our reference viewer and you'll see everything that's associated by this blueprint. So we know that our blueprint is what talks to this animation blueprint for the skeletal mesh, and the skeletal mesh requires these different things to actually operate and run. So let's say if I had moved this again back to another folder, these references might not know where to find this. So it's good habit to make sure you know objects are knowing what they're talking to, because again, that'll associate to a build error. Importantly, if you go to, let's say, build and go down to a map check, I have a couple of load errors. Now this is because of my blueprint has been moved and the example map doesn't know exactly where it went to, but again, I would have to come back and I'll fix that. But really it should be fine. If I were to close this down now, hopefully that message would go away. But let's go back to getting this guy animated right now. Since we're not on a source control setup, I just figured I'd mention that since it's good knowledge to know. So let's get into this guy's animation blueprint and let's set up his aim offsets. So we know that we had done originally was we got a value that drives our spine bones, that controls these spine bones in a certain amount. They're all pretty much evenly distributed. And when we want to preview what our animation is doing in terms of what's controlling this, you can just go back to the event graph and you can take a look over what you had done earlier with the limits that we gave him to look up and down, and then it breaks it down into the offset for the bone space to understand what to do. So let's bring in our aim offsets and let's set that up. So what we can do is we can find in the search bar in our assets tab, we can find our rifle aim offset, or AO as we called. We can click and drag this in. You can even do this with the content browser open, just dragging it right in. And we can drag in a base pose animation that it needs. Well, we do know that this animation runs kind of like this, so we can copy this over. And again, this is not how I'd set this up, but because we're in the early stages of setting this guy up, we can get away with a lot right now in terms of testing to make sure things work. And we have a cache pose down here controlled as lower body, and this is the layered blend per bone that tells which bone is going to need to split off from the upper half so we can control the up and down motions of this character. Let's replace this area that we had set up for transferring our animations from our controls from our bones and let's replace it with the aim offset we just created. Now we need one more thing, is we need a pitch value to drive this. Now I do believe we have a pitch value set up in here. If we don't, we can create that pretty quickly. So we don't have one. Okay, so what we can do is we can grab this, and hopefully this works, but we can promote this to a variable. Nope, it just went up there for me. And because this is needing to run when aiming weapons comes into play, we can just hold control, drag that, plug that in front. I'm going to plug this right into the true value. And I'm going to rename this variable pitch. And if we give it a tooltip, how much the player is looking up and down. The reason I put a tooltip in there is if this gets handed off to someone else, they can go over, oh, what's the pitch do? And they hover over that, and it tells us exactly what we typed in, what it's doing. Now that we have a variable to drive the pitch value, or float variable, let's come back to the anim graph, and let's grab that pitch, and let's plug it into there. So let's compile it, and we'll save it. I was hoping it wouldn't crash there, and it didn't. And now if we come back and play it, we aim, he's now looking up and down. He's got a little bit of those animations from our aim offset. We can drag this window over, and I'll try to make some room. Oh, I have two windows open right now. I have a client and server open right now. Let me close this down and just set this up for two, for just one, and just select a viewport. So he's aiming up and down now. Now if you notice, there's a problem going on with the front of his hand when he's looking up and down. Even when he looks down, his arm wants to come back and over to the right. And when you look up, it wants to go to the left. I got a weird pop going on there too. So what can we do to fix that? Well, we can do two things. We can try to add a couple more animations to the aim offset to help give it a better guide, or we can just stay with the system that we had. Now, I've had better luck with using this system because when it comes time for the animations to fire, it may give some problems, but I'll explain that in a minute. Right now, let's just add a couple more animations and hopefully that'll give us a better look. So we can double click on our aim offset and we can add some more animations. So we have these three here. Now we can add two more that are 45 up and 45 down. Let's just repeat the process that we had done earlier. So I know at the top of this list we have our aim space iron sights, which he has every direction in which he aims, left, right, up, and down. Pause this. I'm going to find those keyframes in which it goes to the most extreme. Well, not most extreme, but halfway up to 45. Now, I don't know if it's 45 from this perspective, so let's hold down Alt and J. Let's go to Alt K. And now we're in orthographic side view. So Alt K will go to orthographic side view. So now we can kind of estimate that that looks about 45 degrees up. Let's go about like right there. That seems pretty good. So again, I'm going to go back to the perspective view, holding down Alt G. I always think of it as Alt Game. I want to go back to game and see what the game looks like. And I can go up to hit record really quickly, and I'll hit stop when that little button pops up here, so that way I'm only getting just this frame. Let's find a place to save it. So I'm going to throw it into his mannequins animation folder. I'm going to call this one rifle aim offset center up 45. Hit OK. I'm going to hit stop on this button, stop recording those stop recording the animation, and then do it one more time to the bottom. So holding down Alt K, excuse me. Take a look at his orthographic side, and let's see where he goes 45 down. About right there. We can hit record here since I know what it's going to look like in the game view. Let's save it out. Rifle underscore aim offset underscore center down 45. Hit OK, and I'll stop it. Let's jump into those aim offsets we now created in our asset browser search list. So let's go with AO. There's all the offsets that we've ever made. If we double click on that animation, now we can begin editing the one that's 45 down. And we don't need all these keyframes, so again, let's right click and let's remove frame 1 to 42. So we have one solid frame of just this. pose, and same thing with 45 up. Let's remove frame 1 to 49, and let's save this out in case we have any crazy crashes. Control S, save all. And let's get these into our aim offset. Well, almost done. We have to get one more thing. We have to make sure these are an additive mesh space. And we give it a reference frame. And I know the animation, we're looking at the other ones, is we have our rifle forward aim, I believe. So let's find an animation that's being used. Holy cow. I'm just going to click on that in the content browser. I'm going to jump back here. I should have had this one selected first before I did that. Let's change this one too, since now we're on the other animation we created. And I can drag this tab off of here. Open up this window a little bit more. And I'm just going to use the idle rifle iron sights animation. I'm just going to click on this. It looks like an enter key, but it's just saying use the select animation you have. Use the selected asset that you have. Same thing with this one. And now our animation should be good to go for our aim space. So I'll click our aim space, and let's bring in our center down 45, and bring our center up 45. Now our animation looks a little bit more, I mean, his arm's not separating as badly anymore. But save it again, good practice. Let's play it again to see how it looks now with our two new added animations. Yeah, he's looking a little bit more stable, but again, there's a problem going on when he's going way up like that. And again, because I need these mechanics to be tight, and I don't want a whole bunch of things to be blending between each other when he's firing his weapons, that's why I tend to use the modification of the spine bone. I do need a better animation where he's aiming more forward, because, okay, again, I'll example this here. This is the trouble I've had with this, and maybe I could be wrong. Hopefully I am, but we'll never... If somebody finds a better way, good on you. Show it to everybody, teach them, man. So if I'm aiming up like this and I fire this weapon, the thing is the aim offset has to blend between 3 different animations now. It's blending between aiming up, a center down 45, it's aiming between like a center down 40, a center up 45. It's blending between the idle animation that is going on at all times, and it's going to have to blend between the gun motions of this guy firing, so his upper body just like moving back when he shoots the weapon and whatnot. And it can just get really jerky and it looks very strange after a while. Like, it just looks bad. I mean, that's what I had, but again, if you find a good way to use it, go for it. But I wanted to go over how to get those aim offsets made. That's just for an aim offset for pitching up and down. That's not with the 45 left and right. The Owen example and the content examples, he's a great asset to look at and how to set that up, because he has all those different motions put on that character. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick with the transform spine bone that we had set up, and that just kind of goes over the aim offsets for this. I'm going to keep this video relatively short, but for now, in the next video, let's get this guy shooting something. You know, we've been already getting this guy to aim, but I want him to at least like something to happen when you pull the trigger. It's going to take a little bit to set that up, but we're going to begin making a weapon blueprint, and we're going to assign some variables and whatnot to get this character's blueprint to talk to that weapon and get it shooting. So I'll see you in the next video.